after getting the bulk of the binding and signatures out of the way in the last few episodes, we are diving into making fun ephemera, adding laces, adding fabrics, adding little envelopes and fun tuck spots and bits in this episode, and putting it all together to not finish our journal, but at least get it workable to where we can add all kinds of extras in the future. Hi friends, I'm Ashley. Welcome back to Darling Cottage Diary. First step we're taking in continuing with our journal journey here is fussy cutting all of the little bits and pieces out of the digital kit that I just released so that you can see all of the small little added pieces, interactive pieces that you can add into your journal, because there's of course the pages, there are pages to make the journal itself, but I love having little tuck spots and ephemera pieces and little writing spaces that are kind of hidden in the journal, as well as just to help decorate the journal. So I promise this is the only fussy cutting you're gonna see because it's a lot. So this was when I was finished fussy cutting, and I cheated. I did use my Cricut on some of these, and that's also why I'm offering a physically cut snail mail kit, because I know some people love making journals and they hate fussy cutting. So if you are not a digital person because you don't want to sit there and cut it, that you have that option too. Anyway, so kind of reviewing what we did the last couple of episodes with making this pocket journal, because we've had a few other videos in between, and making this one. I ran out of sunlight, so I don't even know how much y'all could actually see on screen, but we had 2 signatures and I had started on this one. So I wanted to have 3 signatures total because I felt like that was the thickness that was appropriate for this journal, for this kit. And I found, serendipity would have it, that I found this really beautiful antique music paper that was already sized really small. So I added that as a kind of last element for making the actual pages of the journal. And I wanted it to have a kind of built-in pocket. So that's what we're creating here. Creating this page in sort of a 3-fold with just the tiniest extra little fold is not only going to make the spine of this page stronger, but it's going to create a very secure pocket. And as I've said, making this whole journal, you can absolutely use a sewing machine or other sewing methods, but I'm strictly using glue because I know that that's mostly what people have access to, or are only comfortable with. Even if you have a sewing machine, maybe you're nervous to use it on paper, it really is the same as trying to sew fabric, except it doesn't move around quite as badly. I think it's easier to sew paper, but I understand not wanting to blunt your needles or whatever it is. So I wanted to show this method with just the glue, and I do have, of course, sewn elements because I just can't help myself. I love the zigzag thread look on paper. I think it's very vintage looking. It's very, very attractive to my eye. So I do have some of that, but all of the binding is done with glue and little scrap bits of fabric and paper. So adding to this little signature, so far we have a little vellum page, we have the little bottle pocket, and now we have a large pocket. And these 2 I just wanted to add as regular old pages. They were the most, not the most, but they're more of a blank slates, I think, more writing areas, and so I didn't want to cover them up or glue them down or cover them up with anything. And they are double printed. I actually misprinted. If you can see, it's like double printed on this side in particular. And so I thought I would use kind of the misprints as the outside parts, because the interior parts were printed correctly and also had most space for writing and artwork. So they were pretty and colorful, but they were a little busy to add things to, so that's why I chose to use these little fabric scraps as the outside of the signatures. So we just add glue to the inside of those fabric scraps and on the edge of those 2 pages to add this all to the signature. You could reinforce this with sewing if you wanted to, but I'm just using an acetone based glue. Any brand will work. I have the brand that I'm using in the Amazon tools list in the description box below, and the rest of these, the little mini pages, I just printed this a little bit smaller because these were on one of the pages that I used my Cricut to cut. It does come out a little bit smaller using the Cricut because if you have one, the print and cut option shrinks it a little bit from the regular 8.5 by 11, which I'm not mad about actually. I like how it fit being just that, 5% smaller. I like how the little postcards fit in the pockets, and it worked out for little writing tuck spots. Anyway, so some of this ephemera tags, there's a whole page of tags. And this is the kit that I've been talking about. It is finally launched. It's on my website, darlingcottagediary.com. And if you hadn't noticed, this is a garden theme. So we have bottles. These are pumpkin seeds. And there are 3 different envelopes that you can cut and fold to add in your journal. Gardening and land stewardship and hunting and fishing and all of these things that I think in our more modern society feel very masculine. When I was working on these designs, I was very much wanted to bring a feminine element to it, if that makes sense, because I love to garden, I love to hunt, I love to fish, I love doing all of these things, but I'm going to be wearing a ribbon in my hair when I do it, I'm going to be my accoutrement are going to be pink. I like being the girly girl who likes doing these very, subsistent living type things. And, when I had my quail coop, they had wallpaper. And one day when I have chickens again, they'll have a little chandelier in their coop. That is my aesthetic when it comes to doing the homesteading, farming things, homesteading, gardening things. And I think a lot of women were like that in, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, even further back than that. We have evidence of them just sitting around punching out lace curtains from old tattered rags because they wanted to make their home prettier, and they wanted to not to necessarily impress anybody. They wanted to enjoy it for themselves. And so I wanted to focus on things like growing gardens and growing plants and all of that, but have that element that makes it very beautiful, because nature's beautiful by itself, but it can also be dirty, and it can also be, filled with bugs, and there can be all of these elements that break things down. So I wanted to focus on the beautiful blooming parts of it rather than the more rugged details, because a lot of people, especially if you've never had a lot of contact with the natural world, I feel like lose that. They think about the bugs, and they think about the heat, and they think about things that are not so fun, not so glamorous about, say, having a garden. But even when you get going into it and you get the dirt under your fingernails, it still feels good to break a good sweat. It still feels good to be lifting really heavy bags of soil. It still feels good to be swinging a pickaxe to pull up, this really stubborn patch of grass that you want out of the garden. And even if it does feel rugged and dirty, it still makes you feel good. I never get a better workout than when I spend a whole day overhauling my yard or my garden, and that makes me feel good in my body, which I think ultimately is very is good for the feminine mind, if not if not everybody's mind. So I got very philosophical creating this, but it's what gardening means to me, is taking these different elements and putting them together and seeing things grow from small seeds. And of course we have seeds that we plant in a proverbial sense, in a metaphorical sense. And with the seeds, I had this thought for me. Of course, you can use use them however you want, but I wanted to write down some things that I wanted to improve the environment around and grow in my life this year. And some of those things, those themes, I wanted to write on the seeds and seal them in a little packet to look back on later. So things like hope, prosperity, love, all of these things that I hope to grow bigger and healthier in my life. And I realize they're small seeds, but just having those little reminders, I don't know, it made me happy. And it's one of those interactive elements that I'll be able to go through and look back on, almost like a little envelope of paper dolls when whenever I'm feeling down. I think this would be a good thing to go back and refocus my mind on. As I was working on this journal and adding these little elements to it, I realized just how much I wanted to do with it, and I didn't even use half of the interactive pieces, like the extra little ephemera pieces in this video, because I don't know, I guess I just wanted to be thoughtful about how I'm adding them all. And so it was mostly just the envelopes and a couple of the tags and making the cover and then finishing binding. So I guess this series is going to end up longer than I meant it to, but that's okay because I'm having fun with it for sure. And, if you don't have one of these claw things, I know I use a lot of fancy equipment and stickers and that kind of thing in my videos, but I don't want them to feel inaccessible to you if you're a beginner and you don't have this kind of stuff, or if you're kind of strapped right now and that's not somewhere you can have your money allocated. So what I'm doing here with those metal pieces, there are little stickers that you can use, any kind of round sticker, or you can cut out a round sticker and that will reinforce a hole. Obviously, if you don't have any lace, you can use just whatever. If you have embroidery floss, or if you have thread, if you have an old ribbon or something. I can't tell you how much packaging I save to, like, so much of what I use in my journals is actually stuff that I have taken off of, prettily packaged makeup or cookie tins or all kinds of things. So just something I love so much about junk journaling or just art journaling in general, is seeing the possibility and everything you come across to be able to translate it into your craft. But at the same time, I'm kind of a hoarder. I try so hard to not be a hoarder, but between the jars, like the Rebel canning jars, and the packaging I keep to put in my journals, is I have, a certain amount of space, and sometimes I have to go through and de-stash, but you know, that this does not have to be an expensive hobby. It's just paper when it comes down to it. And all the extra stuff is really fun and exciting and little squee inducing to have, but it's the creativity that creates the most happiness out of it, right? It's the creating something just for you, something new. And my boyfriend and I were talking about our photos this week, and how we're both at the ages where we remember things existing in analog, and you know, our formative years saw everything go digital, and anybody who lived through that can probably relate. But we have so many of our important photos, especially of our kids, online, and you know, we've lost a lot of photos too, because of accounts getting hacked or companies being bought or servers being lost. And this is another reason why I like to journal, is it reminds me that physical medium is still important, and physical medium is what we're going to be left with one day. And it just feels so much more permanent than keeping things in the digital space. I know I make videos and everything, and I operate a lot in the digital space, just like all of us do, but these crafting things with my hands is such a it's a difficult to describe the kind of outlet that it provides. And I mean, all of you are I don't have to justify this to you, all of you understand what that's like. But I don't know, it makes it feel more special, more important in that way, that it's good to keep your pictures and writing down your thoughts in a physical medium, but creating stuff like this is important too, because it often communicates things about what we find beautiful, or things about what we find important, without words. And you know, in some distant future, maybe they won't speak our language so well, or their language is going to be very different, but they'll understand the feeling because of the style of how you make something. And I probably think way too much about this, honestly. I'm a very heady person. I spend all of my time in my head, but it is something that has crossed my mind when making these kinds of things. This is something that it's going to be harder to lose this than, you know, something that I uploaded on some account. I had a Tumblr once upon a time. I don't remember the login information. I don't remember what email I used, and I had some really pretty photos and really pretty poetry and stuff on it, and I have no idea where it is. It's just floating out of there in the ether. But it's unlikely I would lose this, especially because I'm putting so much time and love into it. So, not that you need a justification to create something for yourself like this, but it is something to think about. So this is the end of a piano paper roll. If you don't know what piano paper is, I talked about it in one of my very, very first videos of when I was making one of my journals. And I just sent some of this out actually with Ephemera Club. But it's basically the first recorded music. You would take these papers, and they have little holes punched in them, and put them on a mechanism inside of a piano, and it would play it for you. So this meant that you didn't have to have a piano player, like somebody who knew how to play the piano, to have music played at your place of worship or your town hall or wherever it was, particularly during the pioneer days in the United States. And obviously these were used in other places in the world also, but I found a huge cache of them at a local antique store, and the paper is, for being over 100 years old, is surprisingly strong. And I mean, obviously it had to be being rolled over a little music box machine essentially. And so I just really love the natural antique patina it has, and they all have that little leather triangle and metal ring on them. And I had cut it off whenever I was sending out, I was cutting up pieces to send out to it for Ephemera Club last month, and I kept that part because I knew I wanted to use it for something, and I didn't know what, because that's the hoarder coming out. But what if I need it later, that I was talking about? And I found the perfect project for it, which just reinforces my delusions. But you know what, we're going to roll with it. And I thought, oh, this would be perfect for putting, for making a closure, like a ribbon closure on a journal. And it just seemed like it was the perfect size too. So that is what I'm using this for. And speaking of Ephemera Club, I wanted to go ahead and thank Ephemera Club for supporting me this month. Tanya, Tracy, Shayna, Krista, Dana, Donna, Cindy, Abigail, Kathleen, Rebecca, Sasha, Patsy, Teresa, Effie, Kim, Emily, Carly, Carrie, Leprechaun Mom, Britt, Alicia, Kenna, Rachel, Denise, W, Ariel, Rasha, Jennifer, and thank you guys so much. If you don't know what Ephemera Club is, it's just monthly snail mail and or digital ephemera that I create according to a theme y'all vote on every month, as well as Discord and sometimes bonus content like bonus downloads, bonus videos, those kinds of things. So, and plus if y'all get first priority on any kind of requests. So the printing video from earlier this week was definitely a request from one of my patrons, and it's a great video idea, so thank you so much, Carly. Anyway, moving on to the cover. So I loved this cover, and as pretty as that lace is, I didn't want to cover up the butterfly or the stitching or anything like that, so adding these two little, I think they're called light bulb clips, solved that problem. This is already kind of, I wanted it to have that wonky put together with what I had gumbo style. If you have ever made gumbo before, you know it is kind of the kitchen sink meal, and I kind of wanted this to look like that, just not quite finished, always being able to be added to, and just all these little bits and pieces. I do like professionally bound, perfect edges kind of notebooks too, but I also like making these as just an entire giant piece of art. So adding in the little ephemera here, I realized I was quickly running out of space in my camera, so I was just wanting to get this thing a closure, get it bound, get it somewhat finished, and I'm just going to keep working in this and making it more and more aesthetic and more decorated as the weeks go on. So I'm very excited to have a new one to work in, because I do love my minis, but it is nice to have a little bit more space on the page for the size of stickers I usually use. So I'm excited to be working in this one. That's totally handmade by me for sure. So I didn't like how the stitching got a little chewed up there, which can happen whenever I had just changed the thread as well, because the ribbon was really thin. So I thought, oh, let me put a button on this because it'll make it even more cute, even more pretty. Just, that's my aesthetic, make it cute though. And so I'm just gonna stitch a little button on here. This is a beautiful ceramic button by Cynthia Crane's Pottery is her shop's name. Definitely check her out on Instagram. I love her work. I've been following her and buying from her for a long time, so definitely recommend if you're into little handmade home bits. And she'll usually do like a drop, and you have to be ready because everybody buys her stuff fast. Anyway, so adding the button here, I just thought would add just a little bit extra character, as well as covering up that ugly stitching. Now that we're coming to the end of the video, if you made it this far, please leave me a little stitching emoji in the comments, and you know, just feel free to answer any of the rhetorical questions I asked throughout the video. And it's just so that we can have a little discourse and, you know, your thoughts on digital versus physical media, or thoughts on gardening, thoughts on any of that. I always like to have conversation in the comments. And I hope this video, you got inspiration from it. If not, you know, knowledge of how to do something a little bit differently, or just enjoyed the pretty pictures. And in any of those cases, thank you for being here. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, also feel free to leave those. If you're looking for any of the digital kit itself, or any of the supplies you saw me use, I have those links in the description. You can also comment those and I'll let you know where I got them. So I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you back next weekend. Bye, friends.